Just about 72 hours back, I remember not giving England a single chance of winning this test match. I hang my head in shame, but I thank my colleagues for giving me the platform to still welcome me here to the show and allow me to express my opinions, even though I don't have a leg to stand on.
But we have no option now. We had to have 4 people. So if we had 5 today, you would have been asked to sit out.
They decided not to sweep me or reverse sweep me out of the dugout. So I'm thankful to them.
No, but Indians were no good at the reverse sweep.
All the sweep actually.
All the sweep.
So yeah, that's been the story. But kudos to England. I wasn't here yesterday, but of course would have shared my thoughts yesterday otherwise. But I heard you
bullied
guys.
the junior who go on your off day. I'm not coming.
He was given his chance to taken off today also, but he
doesn't need it, na?
He's full of enthusiasm at the moment, which is great.
When I was his age, I would want to come every day.
But he cannot hold that against, let's say, me for not being considerate enough. So
that is up to him.
That he knows. That he knows.
So what is the big news today?
Plenty of talking points. The big news today, of course, that Shane and you broke, and in case you guys didn't catch it then, well, there's no Ravindra Jadeja, there's no KL Rahul for the following test match. Remember, there's no Virat Kohli anyway, just a reminder over there. So yeah, injury concerns for the both of them. When they're going to be back, we don't know. What the BCCI and their statement have said is that the medical team is monitoring the situation of the two of them. Whether they head to the NCA or not, we don't know that as of now. But a quadricep issue, a right quadricep issue with KL Rahul. Ravindra Jadeja, as we saw in that run out, pulled his hamstring. Clearly, that's the cause of him not being there for the second test match. Big question marks. Will that change things? You can talk about who those replacements will be. Washington Sundar has been drafted into the side. So has been Sarfaraz Khan. There's been a lot of talk about Sarfaraz Khan. Who knows if he does eventually
I want to know from Shashwat. Are you happy?
I'm very happy. I'm the happiest. I'm really happy because of the simple reason. I feel that good things actually find their way, and they truly have found their way. Well deserved, much awaited. That day I know people were talking about the fact that his father is still like singing songs and stuff like that, and they're still
singing songs.
No,
Shairi,
shairi, and he won't
recitation.
You will upset a lot of people who are like fans of shairis that you're calling up songs.
No,
Making a poet into a singer.
No, poet. Okay, poetry. He was doing poetry, but he still won't get his chance. And I really like the fact that even that day, I'll be very honest. Sarfaraz Khan and his father, especially both of them, had. I would not have actually pointed this out. That they had every right to be sad about the fact that he was not picked up and Rajat Patidar was picked in place of him. Still they approached it with positivity. Still they talked about the fact that it's scoring runs and doing well is in their hands. And if you're following the process and if you're doing the right things would automatically fall in place. And I think that approach has really worked for Sarfaraz Khan also and his father also, and so for his brother who is currently playing the Under-19 World Cup.
What other option did he have but to approach it with positivity?
No, but
they had shown other things also. They had shown anger also. He had shown anger also. He has gone through the entire gambit of emotions. Initially being defiant and angry, then still not. So first he was not getting picked up. Then he showed his annoyance and anger and defiance with his actions on the field and otherwise. Then he realized even that is not working. Then he went quiet. Then even that was not working. Then went into poetry. And then even that was not working.
Yeah.
So this is what I pointed out to you yesterday, that at one point, and this if you watch our shows not from now but since the selection committee meeting has happened, we had said that there was a point that he was not being considered. And I'm not saying, sometimes we always, like Shashwat, only look at performances and then question why is an ex-player being picked up and why a player is not being picked up. That is all based on performances. But what we try and tell you here at Sports Today, which we had mentioned earlier, that there was a time few months ago that he was not being looked at as an option. But because of a few other reasons beyond cricket. But that changed, and I think we reported it here, that has changed. So the powers that be had now finally come around it and had decided to pick him. So which means he was in with a chance. When I'm saying it at one point, doesn't matter how many runs, because Shashwat would say, "Na, ab kya kare? Jaan de de apni."
No.
No, you said that. No,
for
which
this
is
case,
fair.
yeah.
But as I said, you are speaking like a fan. You're speaking like someone who's observing. But all I was trying to tell you is that there was a time that wouldn't have mattered how many runs he would have got. He wouldn't have come in, as you saw for a long time. But something changed in the last few months, and maybe, as you said, that those issues that they had, they couldn't have carried on forever. Na? At one time, you would have said, okay, now, that time is gone. He's turned a corner. Let's now again reassess him and give him a chance if a slot opens up. And which is why I told you that as soon as a slot will open up, he will now get a chance. Then what happened? A slot opened up with Virat Kohli not being there. But then that was a 50-50 call. As I said, you would have backed Sarfaraz for he's getting runs. Maybe I would have backed Patidar because even he is getting runs. So it was a close call. If Sarfaraz would have been picked, people who were backing Patidar could have been upset, and they would have been right to be upset. If Patidar got picked, people who were backing Sarfaraz had the right to be upset. So it was like a 50-50 thing. But as I mentioned yesterday, as soon as another slot opens up, we had no idea there'll be an injury. But I said, I was of the belief that let's say some series, a couple seniors pull out or whatever. As soon as multiple slots open up in middle order, he'll be the next name who gets picked up. And lo and behold, there is an injury to KL Rahul, which none of us expected. And guess what? It is Sarfaraz Khan who's made the 15. But will he make the 11? I'm not sure.
In fact, I was reading on social media, people say that no longer is it a surprise that every couple of months, every quarter, KL Rahul picks up an injury now. Just mean comments being floated around, but
he's one of the most hated people on social media.
No, but I mean, he does have a pretty torrid injury record. Let's take aside the trolley aspect of it. It's unfortunate. It happens to a lot of players that, injuries do tend to sometimes rob you of a lot of these things. And I think Nikhil and I were discussing also, I mean, previously it was his left quad. Now it's the right quad that's gone. So what tends to happen?
Was it 100% the left? Because I remember that image of him chasing the ball at the boundary, and he pulled up his leg in the IPL, and that was it.
I seem to recall, because I remember there were plenty of videos that were done. I remember doing a few myself where they said he's got an surgery on the left quad. So
it was hip flexor at one point.
There were a lot of
initial
things.
one, the one that
I'm saying the last major injury when he's chasing the ball
IPL.
at the IPL. It's the initial few matches. He's chasing the ball to the boundary and he pulls up and it looks very bad and he falls down. Then on the other side of the boundary, the ball goes for 4. And from that, it took almost a year for him to make a comeback. Where he made a comeback at the Asia Cup.
Even then, when he was actually supposed to have made a return, then came that hamstring issue. I remember.
Yeah, there was another issue which remember AajTak had said no. He's picked up an unrelated issue.
Yeah,
so he does
which was the hamstring injury, if I recall correctly.
He does tend to have this thing where in clusters. Even in 22, similar thing happened. He had I think there was a groin issue which he got surgery for, sports hernia. Yeah, that picked up COVID. So he does really have.
He reminds me of Anthony Martial the whole time.
You're being very generous, at least.
Actually, there's a lot of parallels. There's actually a lot of parallels.
No. Anthony Martial is stealing a living. Okay. Let's be very frank. He's a striker who doesn't score goals.
He will come, score a couple of goals in about 6-8 games, and they'll be like beautiful goals to see at times. He's got that grace about him, as does KL Rahul when he bats. But then, of course, they'll sit out just the amount of time that they would spend on the field. So I think that those are the parallels between the two.
No, you're harsh. KL plays. He got injured also. Yeah. But guess who's happy with his injury must be Shashwat.
No, and
he kept cribbing. Why did he make an entry as a wicket keeper? Yeah. If he came in as a wicket keeper, why is he not doing wicket keeping now?
A lot of people have been tagging me in posts of that nature.
You're also happy.
I'm not happy. I mean, I never really, not my job to smile on anyone's misfortune. And it's unfortunate, especially when you consider right now you have a batting lineup that lacks experience. And you've lost one of the more experienced players. Oops. You
effectively will be playing the next test match with your 4 frontline players. 4. So Virat Kohli, Ravindra Jadeja, KL Rahul, Mohammad Shami. 4 who are injured right now. Who would have been first choice pick if all your players were available. So without first choice 4 players missing out in your 11, that's a big tent to the Indian test team.
And big advantage really, I mean, if England was smelling blood, then suddenly they're seeing more blood in the water.
But the last time all of this happened, you know how well India did.
Exactly. And just talking about
Australia.
Talking about Sarfaraz a little more here, we often tend to say that the good boy always suffers when we were talking about this fact for Ishan Kishan. Now suddenly, how does this change for someone like a Sarfaraz who has? It's not like he suddenly scored for 6 months and then he was really annoyed by the fact and he was doing gestures at the selectors for the fact that you're not picking me up, picking me. It's all of this has happened in a span of 3 years and 3 consistent performances by him. So I don't understand why does the yardstick change here for Sarfaraz Khan, because then on one side, if Ishan Kishan is being the good person, then the wrong things are happening with him. We were with Ishan Kishan for the fact that he actually reacted the way he reacted. Then I don't think we should be questioning the fact that Sarfaraz actually was a little reluctant in a few things that were conveyed to him by the selectors. And then I don't know.
Who is justifying that? Who has said that that's right? And who said that if Ishan is upset, it's all right, Sarfaraz cannot be upset? I never said it's right or wrong. Unlike you, I was not giving my opinion. I am saying what the reality is. I'm giving you the news. I don't have an opinion. I'm just giving you news. So when you had an opinion that Virat should not make it to the T20 team. I did not have an opinion. I was only giving you news that he's making it to the T20 team. Similarly, I don't have an opinion whether what selectors or think tank did to Sarfaraz is right or wrong. To each his own. You may think it's right, some may think it's wrong. I don't know. I'm just telling you why he was not being picked and why now he is being picked. I'm just telling you. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong.
And I think in the reality of Indian cricket, and really in fact it's true for world cricket as well, you'll always have different strokes for different folks. A lot of players, you've seen a lot of countries try with certain players to make them all format players. It hasn't worked. I remember people always say that, why is a Joss Butler not playing? England gave him a fair shake. I think he's played like 60 tests. But he never had a good run. He just never did.
Also, it doesn't matter whether we are being fair and having different standards. The fact is that if the powers that be in Indian cricket took a harsh call for Sarfaraz for, let's say, disciplinary reasons, then they did for Ishan Kishan as well. So if they are consistent, that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, while we can keep playing selectors here, we will not eventually choose the team. So if we have double standards, it's not going to affect the prospect of a Sarfaraz getting picked or not. If the people in charge were having double standards, as in, so Ishan threw tantrums, but they say no, we should still pick him. But Sarfaraz threw tantrums and you tried to ignore him, then that would be unfair. Even that could be. But they've been, that hard approach they've had with both players, which could be, which is what you want to see. And I think they've done that. Anyway, the point of the
that finally is in.
He's in, but it's going to be very tough for him to get a chance into the 11.
I mean, you can pick one uncapped batter, right? And considering they picked Rajat Patidar as the first replacement, you would reckon that he's probably the one in line for that.
And he's been there with them for the white ball leg also.
Played for the India A side against the Lions, got a nice unbeaten 150 there. It has to be him.
Even I think they would start with him.
So we're not spending too much time into the replacements and because we've done a separate video on Saurabh Kumar, what he brings to the table, as well as Washington Sundar coming in, what could be the combination that the Indian team goes with. We've done a detailed discussion on that. That video is already up on Sports Today. Today, the dugout, of course, we are discussing what is the primary reason. Of course, for any loss, there will be multiple reasons. It just can't be one reason. But we're looking at the primary reason, the biggest reason, or the number one reason, whichever way you look at it, for India's shock loss in Hyderabad. And I must say it's a shock loss because even the English media, which is quite jingoistic on occasions and quite, bullish about their team, have gone on to term this as miracle in Hyderabad. So even England did not think. Ben Stokes has come out and said that this is the best victory under his captaincy. He's already had 13 or 14 something like that wins in his captaincy career, which with a outstanding success rate, and he's come out and said best win. So that itself, and remember, this is the same England team that beat England, chasing that record total down at Edgbaston. This is the same England team that registered a comeback in the Ashes to come back and win those 2 test matches. So they've had a few good wins, big wins under Ben Stokes. Yet he said the Hyderabad win is the best so far in his career. So this tells you, what a big upset it is. Not just with the way we are looking, but even the opposition looking at it. So what could be that one reason We heard from the coach, that is Rahul Dravid, and while he's pointed out various things, one of the biggest headlines that's gone around in terms of how he's analyzed the game, he says that, our batting in the first innings, we should have got 70-80 runs more. None of our batters got 100. We should have got 70-80 runs more when the pitch was good for batting. And if he had, then, they would have been in a better position to win that test match. That's what he said. So, for him, that's the primary reason. Though he's quoted a few other reasons. We'll go across the room and figure out what our primary reasons are. Let's start with Harshit. You want to start? You've been awfully quiet for so long.
I've been observing.
As always. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't quite agree with the coach over there. I think, and a similar statement in fact was made by Rohit Sharma as well. I strongly feel that it wasn't perhaps enough runs on the board. I think it was perhaps subpar bowling. I won't call it ordinary, but the fact that you just lost to, let's say, the sweep and the reverse sweep. There was no counter to it. Just going to throw some numbers here as well. Ollie Pope, in that 196 that he scored, of those 100 runs had in fact come in just sweeps and reverse sweeps. So if you're saying that two of the bowlers and the prime bowlers in the longest format of the game can't figure a way around as to how you tackle that, I'd like to believe that's not true, because you should have, once you see an innings, he scored a century alone, let's say, with the sweep and the reverse sweep, should have known or should have come up with something to be able to stop Ollie Pope and, let's say, a Ben Duckett for that matter, whose stay was very short, let's say, but you knew that the go-to shot was the sweep, reverse sweep. So should have. And just to numerically further emphasize how glaring, let's say, the bowling was in terms of, the runs being given away then. One, of course, was the fact that, as I said, the bowlers should have been much better and applied themselves much better. The fact that since Ashwin and Jadeja started bowling together, it's the first time that they recorded only 9.9% maiden overs. It's the lowest since they started to bowl together as a unit. That tells you.
Is that the bowler's fault, or is it how the England batters batted against them?
I'd say because, again, and you hear it from Ollie Pope, let's say, he said it very candidly that we were very sure, we practiced the sweeps enough that this would be, we knew that those are very high quality bowlers that we're going to be against. So we knew we're going to be just
deploying. That's what I'm saying. Was it poor bowling, as you were saying, or was it very good batting from them and they came prepared?
If it was good batting as well. I don't want to discredit the England batters here, but I'm just saying, for two of the best bowlers around, should have figured out a way, that too at home, that too on a pitch that was actually assisting you. What did the two innings tell you? The Indian bowling innings in the second innings and the way the English bowled in the second innings. The fact that India wasn't landing the ball where it should, I wouldn't say that the England bowlers extracted more turn or there was any additional assistance on day 4 where India didn't bowl as much, let's say. But it was just that they were bowling at the right lengths. Indians weren't doing that.
No,
the ball was just, it wasn't like the ball was turning square. The ball was just turning enough, as you saw in the Indian innings as well.
So you are disagreeing with Rahul Dravid. You don't think that India lost the game in the second innings of their batting, the first innings of their batting.
Yeah.
So they got enough runs, and they should have bowled better in the second innings and not allowed England to get
190 run lead.
Okay.
Going by statistics also, like when have you ever lost after having a 190 run lead in India? It's not happened.
Okay, so the biggest reason, your number one reason, because we're going to, is that Indian bowlers did not bowl well in their second innings, so they were not up to scratch in the second inning. Number one reason. You're not with Rahul Dravid to say that we should have batted better in that. That's not your primary reason. Shane, I'll come to you also, Shashwat.
No, I do.
What's your number one reason?
Number one reason, and first of all, I will say that I agree with Harshit's take here that I don't think the batters had much to do with it. If anything.
So you also don't agree with
No,
Rahul
I do
Dravid.
not agree with what Rahul Dravid said. I found it a bizarre statement that you're saying you had 3 or 4 batters get you in 70s or 80s. You had 436 runs. If I'm faulting any batting performance in the second innings, because there I'll agree with what Rohit Sharma said in the post-match. He said, look, I don't think any of our batters played with much aggression. We didn't show enough character. His exact words. He's saying, we didn't show enough character. We didn't try and kind of, be fearless. He did. You can say he did, but he was probably the only batter who took that approach. Everyone else was batting in a shell. You're not batting aggressively, or you don't even need to be playing T20. Just cut loose a little bit. When was it that the batters looked best? When a KL was getting good shots. When I think Akshar hit those 3 boundaries of Rehan Ahmed. That was when you were looking good. You had to play some of your shots. You didn't play your shots. In the first innings you did, which is where you won. No, I think if anything, if you're blaming
Number one reason
would be, I think you got out-tacticked, quite frankly. Where I will say, and I've seen this a lot from a lot of England players, they've said afterwards that, we were watching what the Indians were doing and we kind of adjusted our tactics accordingly. Stokes said it. Tom Hartley said it. Hartley said, I watched where Ashwin and Jadeja were landing the ball and I kind of tried to incorporate that into my own innings in the second time around. Ollie Pope himself admitted saying we had a lot of practice and we knew we were very clear with our mindsets, but even he admitted saying, listen, I wrote my luck a bit.
Yeah.
So I knew there were a few false strokes which kind of went flying up. Why was it not claimed? Because you had a defensive field. Tactics.
So you're saying number one reason for you is not anything that India did wrong, like he picked out India's bowling as number one. You have picked out England being tactically much sharper as the number one reason.
I think and that's also a criticism on India's plans in that they seem tepid at times. There wasn't that much productivity. I felt that you could have tried something different. You were kind of sticking conventional test cricket, right? You're playing that you keep plugging at it, you'll get a result. But if you're playing against an unconventional side, maybe it would have been. And if you see the game slipping away from you, try something different.
Okay, so two of our panelists here do not agree with this assessment, which has been made by the coach as well, that India should have gotten more runs. There should be a centurion. I think that's what Rahul Dravid said. If we had a centurion in the first innings and we got more runs, we would have been in a better position. So that's not to the assessment that we've just heard, in line with what Rahul Dravid said. Does anyone agree with what Rahul Dravid says? Shashwat,
I do agree with what Rahul Dravid actually said because firstly I feel that you said that Ashwin and Jadeja have been you gave some stat about 9% about maidens. That a very big reason for that is that this wicket wasn't the typical wicket which we have been seeing since so many years. So anyways, I don't think that stat really would mean anything because both the wickets are very different.
So I have a question. You have a valid point on that only. So you're saying because previously you got like gaddas, which are ranked turners, so then they would get more maidens. This time they were not getting maidens because this was not the gadda.
Exactly.
My point is, then again it goes back to the bowlers, or what he said, that the bowlers were at fault. That do they not have then the experience or the guile or the art to be bowling in these kind of pitches, which were the old traditional Indian pitches?
A debutant on the other side did it. Simple as that. So a debutant did it on the other. You don't always need ranked turners. There was enough turn. That's what my point was. There was enough assistance. Let's say that the two most experienced spinners and did the bloody good, and we know that. Look at the rankings. There was enough assistance for you to have bowled with discipline enough to, let's say, curtail them. Found a way to put the brakes on. You knew that they were going to be aggressive, and they scored at 4.11 in the second innings.
Okay, let him finish.
I feel that this sort of a wicket we have never seen 400 also getting on in the third innings. That was done by England. So I don't think that there was so much assistance. Why Tom Hartley did well again, I think the bigger reason for that was that firstly I think his lines and lengths were much better and very different from what he actually bowled in the first innings.
So doesn't it go back to Indian bowlers?
I'm coming to the Indian batters.
Exactly.
I'm coming back to
what
the Indian.
What did Hartley show you?
Arya, I'm coming back. They applied English batters applied themselves much better against Ashwin and Jadeja, whereas on the other hand, the Indian batters did not apply themselves so well against the English
the bowling
bowlers.
was good enough. It's just that the batting.
I'm not saying it's good enough, but I'm the first. But the reason why India lost, I would definitely say that it was the batters who flopped.
So that's what I'm saying. So please give reasons. Why did you think that, rather than going into the Indian bowling, because that's not your number one reason how India bowled. You have picked, and you are in alignment with what Rahul Dravid is saying, which is that India should have gotten more runs. There should be a centurion and two India should have got when the pitch was easy to bat on, and because they did not get another 70-80 runs, they lost. So why do you?
I feel those 70-80 runs. I don't think that the wicket was much different from the first innings that India played and the second innings India played. So it should have been. I think the total also should have been chased on because India was on course. India did not play with that mindset, that aggression. They were double-minded.
But you're disagreeing with Dravid. You said I agree with him.
I do.
That
So
in
you
the
are saying
first
they
innings
did
they
not
should have
bat
gotten
well in the
100.
second innings.
First
That's
innings
another-
as well. I think in
So
the first.
I want to
yeah.
know, why do you agree with him on first innings?
Because the first.
So now you said you agree with him, but you have said Indian bowlers did not do well. There you have said India did not bat well in second innings. So you are disagreeing with him actually.
No, I
Or
do.
you agreeing?
India, I
so
do.
the number one reason for you is that India did not bat well in first innings, right?
Yeah.
Please explain that now.
That India did not apply themselves to the fullest in the first innings also.
190 run lead.
No, let him finish.
But I think that the wicket was pretty flat. When you know the wicket is this flat and then you know the approach that the English batters would actually be taking, then you should know that these runs would be short on a wicket when the wicket isn't changing that much. It was already the second and a half, third day. By then, when the wicket was playing pretty well for the batters, it would have gone to be okay for them going ahead also. As England showed, they came out and scored 400 runs in the third innings also. So I think the wicket was perfectly fine. The Indian batters should have gotten into more runs.
Yeah, after what 11 years or something, a visiting team has scored 400 runs in the second innings, batting in India. If it hasn't happened in 11 years, then it has to be the fact that yes, your bowling was not up to the mark.
But
No,
how you then
his
concede
point
you've
is
seen the
that
wickets,
in
the-
11 years you
yeah.
never got such wickets as well.
No, this was a very good wicket. It was turning from
That's
day
what he's
one.
saying. Now you're not getting. No, good wicket means what?
Yeah, define a good wicket in this case.
So you're saying it's a very good wicket. It was turning from day one. That for a lot of people is not a good
a bad
wicket.
wicket.
That's what I'm saying.
Now this is now going to
For
be the
you,
template going forward. We know that.
So my question to
You think it was
Shashwat-
those typical gaddhas only?
See, you don't always need turners. See, there was enough turn. You don't always need, let's say, those gaddas or those rank turners. I'm saying these are very good bowlers, and they should have done very good. If a debutant told you that okay, you land the ball in the right areas, there was just enough turn to beat the bat. It happened to Rohit. Look at Rohit Sharma for that matter. Rohit Sharma had deployed the sweep shot only 7 times earlier in his Test career. He did it once. So he was beaten by Hartley a couple of times in that over. Once there was an edge, the other time he was beaten. Then he gets that reverse sweep out. For a batter who had only deployed the sweep shot 7 times prior in his entire Test career, that tells you enough.
Okay, so what we have at the moment we've had 3 people give their number one reason. Harshit has said India's bowling in the second innings of England is the number one reason. They shouldn't have allowed England to get those many runs. That's the number one reason India has lost. Shane has said tactically England were better, whether they were bowling or batting. So they came much better prepared. They came with the sweep shots, reverse sweep, and so they outwitted India, and that's his number one reason. Shashwat so far has kind of echoed what Rahul Dravid has said, though he's listed out few other reasons. But he says the number one reason is that India, when they had that opportunity in their first innings, should have got a bigger total, another 70-80 runs, and maybe 100 or 2 should have come, and that would have helped. My only point is that, again, this is something that we mentioned earlier. Why are we again so obsessed with 100? What I am again not saying, and people, I'll repeat for the umpteen number of times, people says, so what is a test match? If not 100, what else? I'm not saying a batter should be satisfied with an 80. I'm not saying that. As a fan, we should be satisfied with an 80. Not saying that. Of course, I want KL Rahul to get me 186 rather than 86. Of course, I want that. Of course, I want a Jaiswal to give me a 180 or a 280 rather than just an 80. Of course, I want that as a fan, as a supporter. Of course, even Jaiswal wants that. Of course, even KL Rahul wants to do that. So first get this in mind that when I say why are we obsessed with 100, does not mean that we are okay with scoring a good 30s and 40s. That's what is a very immature way of looking at the argument. What I'm trying to say is that if a batting lineup, whether they got 86, whether somebody got 80, whether somebody got 87, end of the day you have gotten 421 runs in your first innings. If I start looking at individual scores, then becomes the problem. I'm looking at my team total. The team is playing now, not individuals. I want to see, is 420 a good enough score for me? It is a good enough score for me. I am not saying, please look at England. They got 420 runs. So Ollie Pope got 190 whatever.
Nice.
You can share that as much as you want. The fact of the matter is England got the same amount of runs as India did. India got it with different 80s and 87s and 86. Ollie Pope got 194. The end of the day, England got the same amount of runs. So what is this obsession that we should have had 100? We should have had a centurion. I think the debate should be, we should get 400 plus on this track, or we should get 500 plus on this track, and that should be the diktat. The reason, and now I'm coming to my number one reason that India lost. Number one reason that India lost this test match was the insipid batting that they had in the second innings. The fear of failure that they went in the second innings. The fear of failure, the fear of living up to the reputation or the hype that they carry with them, rightly, wrongly, but based on the results. That is the number one reason for me why India lost. Everything else in the match went according to what you would want to see. England batted well in the first innings, so they got 240 plus. They were justified in doing that. India batted well in the second innings, they got 420 plus. As Harshad is saying, it may not have been a gadda, but it wasn't an easy pitch to bat on. So why would I be obsessed? You should get 80 more runs. Then, so every time you lose a match, you blame the batter. Oh, you got 400 this time. No. I wanted 500. Next time they get 500, you lose. No. I wanted 600. 600? No. There is no end to it. Did India get more than the par total on this pitch at 421? Absolutely they did. What else do you want? They got more than a par total. 420 was a good total that India got. You got a 190 run lead. What else do you want? So you got what you wanted. Your batters did the job. I'm not going to look at somebody get 100. Sure, somebody could have got a 150 like in England did, but then others wouldn't have. I'm only looking at my team total. And the way that they played their shots, they got out, was the way that they had reached that 80 and 90. I'm not saying that we should be happy they got out. I wanted KL Rahul to get to 180, but I wanted KL Rahul to get to 180 the way he reached 80. KL Rahul took a different approach. He should have continued with that approach. This is what they didn't do in the second innings. Jadeja had a very different approach in getting to his 87. He did not play like KL Rahul. He was a bit more circumspect. Absolutely fine. He should have played like that. In that process, I'm just saying, you keep hearing about process. In that process, if Jadeja reached 100, well, good. But if he did not reach 100, also good. He gave you an 87. He should have continued with that process. The thing is, he got out when he changed his outlook the next day when he came, or how he batted. He got out. Similarly, the reason number one India lost in the second innings, you should have chased that 200 odd. It was not the gadda that we get, where 150 plus you would be nervous. This was a good enough pitch where just a few hours ago, I'm not even looking at Ollie Pope. If you say, okay, Ollie Pope had an outstanding inning, don't look at him. Even Hartley was batting well, yeah, not being troubled. It's not that the Indian bowlers, so if it's not that the pitch changed, it was a decent enough pitch if you applied yourself to get to that 200 plus total that you were chasing. India should have gotten to it. India came there, they froze. They froze because there was the scoreboard pressure, fear of failure, which is something that we've seen, and they did not bat in the way that comes naturally to them. When I say naturally, again I'm not saying they should bat like T20, they should bat like ODI. No, whatever way or whichever way suits you, you should have batted. Yashasvi Jaiswal batted very differently in the first inning to how he was in the second inning, much more tentative. Did you allow that pressure to go to you? Every other batter, you had of course a few careless dismissals like the run out of a Ravindra Jadeja and so on. So your poor performance in the second inning, I'll tell you why. When we were sitting and discussing the test match, when was the first time that you said in that entire, and we do shows at every interval like lunch, tea, post match, lunch, I cannot remember at any stage of the match, no matter where the match was, any of us gave England more chances than India in percentage.
They were never ahead?
Never ahead. So why? Even when India were chasing that total on that pitch, because you had seen enough of that pitch, all of us backed India to get it, including Shashwat, who had given India the least amount of chance, also at that situation thought that India should win it. Why? Because you knew on that pitch India should have batted better, but India did not. India froze. India had that fear of failure. And it's very interesting because this is not something that we mentioned today. This is exactly our analysis yesterday as well. But I just read this morning, even Kevin Peterson had a very similar analysis. Kevin Peterson has also come out to say that he found the way India approached in that 4th inning in terms of batting was very unlike this Indian batting. They did not bat the way they should. And I think this is where the Indian team needs to introspect. Not that lament about, we did not get 100, we should have got 80. That way though nothing is going to be enough. 500 won't be enough, 600 won't be enough, 700 won't be enough.
I mean, if you're looking at reasons, as I said, if you're looking at how the batters approach, you're talking about, just look at, and I know it's a very relative thing here, but strike rates. Jaiswal in the first innings striking at over 100. 108, I think, if I'm not wrong, was his strike rate. Second innings, he looked like a shell of himself. An absolute shell of himself.
Again, not repeating that, carry the T20 template. Because people think like that now you are saying, Arey, test cricket ko to chhod do. If you are there in T20, you are talking about strike rate, please let go the strike rate. I'm not even looking at the strike rate. I'm only talking about intent. Intent as in, of a Jaiswal seeing a loose delivery, going for it, vis-a-vis a Jaiswal who's unsure, or a Shubman or a Shreyas Iyer, whatever, unsure of what to do. Come out, bat in the manner that's natural to you, whatever that strike rate may be, 50 for someone, 60 for someone, 70 for someone, that's your go-to comfort zone. Bat like that.
Why I mention this because his comfort zone is batting like that.
Exactly.
His comfort zone is batting at 80-90 strike rate in test cricket. His comfort zone is that. In the second innings, he was so out inside his shell that he's batting at a strike rate of 42. Terrible. And that's where it comes down to, if you're blaming the batting, blame the second innings batting. Because you were hopeless at that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely hopeless. And why I also keep mentioning tactics is because the more I read the comments from everyone, the more I realize that the England players were adjusting on the fly. They knew in the first innings what was our thoughts. If they've gotten past 250 odd, this is a great total. Because you're thinking, it's going to be one of those gaddas. It'll spin a lot from day 2 and then India may not be in with that much of a chance.
So I want a question, because you talk about tactics and it's an interesting point. Why is it that India is found wanting tactically? I give you an example of the World Cup. That's exactly what Australia did. You beat the Australian team, and we discussed that a lot. You beat that Australian team in the group stage. But when they came into the final, we used to discuss that it will not be the same Australian team. One, because of course they play at a different level when it comes to big final. The other, they come better prepared. So what we had analyzed the final was that they had seen how India had been playing. The first time they played you in the group stage, they did not know what your approach is going to be. By the time you had played 9 odd matches, 10 matches, when you reached the final, Australia knew exactly what India is going to do. And tactically they beat you. Tactically they beat you because they knew Rohit will play attacking, KL will consolidate, Virat will do, which was working. Everyone was part of the puzzle and performing their role to perfection. Whether it was a Virat, a KL, a Shreyas, Rohit Sharma, Shubman, everyone was doing that. But because Australia had seen you, they knew this is exactly what you're going to do. So they came prepared with their bowling changes, where they're going to bowl to you like that. So tactically they beat you in that World Cup final. And now as Shane is pointing out, tactically, as England is also saying, first innings they saw what you were doing and where you caught them. Tactically they prepared for the second innings. My point is, why is it that tactically you are a step behind? What are the folks that are supposed to tactically think and come up with feedback? And that will be the entire top management. That will include your captain, your vice captain, your coach, your batting coach, your fielding coach, your bowling coach, your video analyst, and everyone else put together. There's a think tank, right? So what is the think tank doing? Why are we not tactically one step ahead, having seen that they are sweeping or going to try reverse sweeping? Why did we not figure out how or what to do or let to change? I did see a few things. For example, Ashwin on his own, trying to delay the delivery by bouncing a few more steps because he wanted to see premeditated reverse to nahi maar raha hai. He tried a few things. But overall, those are just minor things here and there. Overall, why are we not tactically there?
I don't understand, because again, I think one thing which I will give credit to this England side, I mean, look, you can criticize their high-handed approach. They tend to have that, especially when the spirit of cricket debate starts, you want to roll your eyes. One thing they've been trying to do a lot in this new setup under Baz and Stokes' captaincy is kind of try and empower everyone. Hartley was saying that, in the first innings I realized my approach was wrong. Why? Because it wasn't spinning as much. So what was his problem in the first innings? I looked at his score and I sat back and thought, at times he was pitching it far too wide. Why? Because he thought it was going to turn square. So to a Jaiswal, many more often than not, he was pitching it on like 4th or 5th line outside of stump, and Jaiswal, knowing fully well it's not going to turn that much, boom, gone for it. Second innings, what was he doing? He was giving it a little bit more air, and he was letting it spin less. Because he said, no, it's not that much turn. I just have to be accurate. Rather than expecting that it's going to turn square, he's saying, I tried bowling more. And actually, if you look at it in the second innings, his speeds were lesser. He was averaging about 85 kmph.
And it was the exact opposite with Indian spinners, where Jadeja, who usually does not turn it much, was turning a lot. Or were trying to give more reps to turn it a bit more. And his ball was turning, which is very unusual. But rather than, those straighter, unless, the thought was because it's a slow turner, and if I try to throw those darts that I usually do, they'll have enough time to negotiate it, or they'll figure out that the one that's going straight or not. So maybe this is a pitch where I'll have to bowl the conventional spin where I'd flight it a bit, or try and, get revs out of it and get it to turn. Either way, it did not work. So tactically, the approach that you went with and the approach that England was very different, and clearly they've trumped you tactically.
And that's the thing, I don't understand. How is it that you'll discover something that works and then you'll stick with it? Is there no plan B, no plan C? Is there no mentality of adjusting on the fly, which is a very important trait?
World Cup final.
Yes. You were caught on the back foot, and then rather than try and change something around, say, okay, this pitch isn't really doing much, and Australia have us on the back foot. Now you need to do something else. Maybe go for a big shot. Unnerve the bowlers. No, you went into your shell and throughout the middle overs didn't get a single boundary. Australia had won the game by that point. Never mind Travis Head's blitz after that. They didn't need a blitz to chase down that target. It was a pretty simple target. That was just the icing on the cake. That you have one batter who will bat exactly how your batter should have been batting, takes the game away from you.
Yeah.
The problem also being again in that second innings, unfortunately, you say in Test cricket, you got to trust your defense. You don't have those kind of players anymore who can be rock solid in defense. Let's be honest about it. We know that an Aksar's template is something when playing spin. A Jadeja is more suited when he's dancing down the track, taking the attack as he was, let's say. And that was like a major change that you saw in the second innings vis-a-vis the first, where everyone played the way that it suits them. Rohit, everyone from top to tail played exactly beat your number 9 in Aksar. Second innings, as Shane says, you went into your shell, and the fact that you weren't again, it's exactly the same as to what had happened in the World Cup final. Look at a Duckett, look at an Ollie Pope. Did he middle all those sweeps and reverse sweeps? No. Was there a missed chance here and there? Yes, there was. But why did you not have the fielders when even there was a couple of those reverse sweeps and sweeps which was skied? Because everyone was just spread out. There was no attacking field because England, given the position they were, Ollie Pope played with some heart, which is what Rohit Sharma said. We lacked the bravery. We weren't brave enough in the second innings. Ollie Pope, knowing that everything rests on his shoulders, forget the fact that he's nearing 100 or a double 100, played exactly the same way and was willing to take the risk. You get rewarded when you take the risk. Of course, it makes you look like a fool at times, but again, the idea is to have the heart. None of the Indian batters were willing to, let's say, take that risk. Everything, like you saw, two batters taking it all on their shoulders in the World Cup final. As a result, what? No boundary for about 40 odd overs. Here as well. Where was the run flow then? It stopped. And England were then toying with you because the field was spread out. There's absolutely no pressure. I don't have to defend as a result. I can play my strokes. Simple as that.
Ashwath?
But I don't know, I feel that in the second innings, that pressure would have been there a little bit extra, but playing spin for these Indian batters has been a problem since a very long time now, because of the reason that, again, you don't need those many runs when you're playing on the wickets that you have been since a very long time. So you don't need those many runs. Now suddenly when you had a wicket that was a true sporting wicket, that was a little bit problem. And I feel that Test cricket is...
But my point is they had that true sporting wicket earlier as well in Nagpur against Australia. Indian batters knew how to play. They had better spinners, Australia, than the English spinner. So while I agree that over the years the ability of batters to play spin has diminished, I agree. But it's not that they are novices. They just don't know how to play. That they are at 6s, at 7s. They're not even that, because this is the same team which is undefeated at home, right? On ranked turners. They have found someone or the other to chip in on a certain occasion and get runs. So they know how to get runs better than the opposition. May not be as good as the earlier generation of Indian batters and not as good as even the earlier generation than that. I agree with that. But it's not that they are even as bad on a pitch that wasn't turning not to change 200.
And as far as Rohit Sharma's captaincy, a little bit, I think that because the English side was in such a situation where the run flow was not stopping, that's why at that point, I think Rohit Sharma was found looking a little bit because he did not know to go attacking or defensive. There, I think that would be any captain if some batter is going after you so much. Like we have seen Rishabh Pant going after the Australians so many times, but the Australians still stick to the defensive field no matter how many runs Rishabh Pant is going after. I think that is where Rohit Sharma was a little I think wasn't sure about his plans. And secondly, I feel going ahead, if India has to be that test big team in the test cricket, then I think test cricket in general overall needs to be prioritized a little more.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel this test cricket by the player by this batch is genuinely prioritized a lot. Someone like a Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli have again and again stated the fact that test cricket is the most important for them. But moving ahead, I think that you would need test specialists, and you would have a different team for test specialists and white ball, because that's the only way you would be able to keep test cricket at the top, different from T20 cricket and one day cricket. And for that, I think a little more focus should be given to on the team building in general also.
Yeah, that's a larger debate. Pawan, can we see comments? Yeah, that's a larger debate, as in that we have often spoken. That if you want to do well in tests, you have to prioritize. Maybe in the future that happens. You have different teams for different formats. Who knows? Yep. Let's take Sandeep Anand.
He asked why was Saurabh Kumar picked and why not a Shams Mulani as a backup for Jadeja, because he would have been a better prospect. He's better with the bat than Saurabh and on par in bowling too.
But I tell you why. Saurabh, at least the reports that I read or how he's looked at, is a player that tends to do well on ranked turners. So if you were going to play on conventional wickets which you get in domestic cricket, maybe Shams Mulani could be that. But when you get the gaddas that we talk about, that's the kind of pitch where Saurabh Kumar is expected to do much better. He just recently picked up a 6 for in Irani, which was a match-winning performance, and that pitch was also quite a ranked turner. So he's that sort of a
Picked
bowler.
up a 5 against the Lions as well. England
Yeah,
Lions.
and also he has been in and around the India A side and has been doing well in the domestic circuit since a very long time. Now he's
30 years old.
Yeah, and he's truly a domestic veteran. He's also been part of the IPL side, also Pune team, and he's been around the India A circuit since a very long time. So picking in line also, he was much ahead of Shams Mulani, because Shams Mulani has been doing well from the last couple of seasons, and he has been around since a very long time now.
Yeah, I saw his age and I'm like 30.
Yeah.
He's old.
Yeah.
Then I remembered I'm 30. I'm like, oh, young guy, good lad.
But
Get him into the
you're
team.
young in the profession that you're doing. 30
True.
in the
In sports.
yeah, very different.
Yeah.
Okay, Tanmay Joshi says number one reason according to him, sporting pitch. Sack the Hyderabad curator, buy some shovels for Vizag, and witness the class of our world-class spinners. Once again on public demand, Shashwat, how is the pitch being prepared in Vizag?
They've stopped putting water there. I think they've already scheduled a league game there before the test match, and then it would be
Same pitch.
Same pitch, of course. The match pitch where you'll see the second test match. They're having a league game already. No water is being given since 2-3 weeks now. As I told, that water in the whole city has been.
What? Go ahead. Put explain in detail. Huh?
That's it. Yeah.
So water supply in the whole city is.
Yeah.
Has been cut off.
What about roller?
Heavy roller every day after the game.
Get a bulldozer.
On the dry pitch.
On the
so
drive,
it cracks.
It cracks, opens, breaks, everything happens.
Are you doing? Are you also
What
giving
about-
it?
Spikes are compulsory for the league game.
So one league game.
Yeah,
And
batting
what
spikes
about the moisture that comes with the ocean wind?
That we're doing that effect now, greenhouse effect.
Greenhouse. So
Yeah.
make a greenhouse. So
Yeah.
that also. There.
Yeah.
You're doing artificial lighting like you
Yeah,
have, in
So
stadiums
this is
in
how
Europe.
you would prepare a pitch.
I would definitely do that. I would definitely have a game there just one night before the test match.
Okay. Manchester Rising from the US says whatever team management says, conceding 400 plus and unable to chase 230 is unacceptable. We were overconfident and cocky. Harsh reality check. Dravid is too meek. Ooh, Dravid. I mean, Dravid's not playing though. So I mean, it has to boil down to your back. I mean, see, players have to take the thing. Of course, the coach for the tactical things that we spoke about, but eventually, and listen, this is a Dravid who could be the last person you can call meek. He stood up as a player, and I covered a lot of his cricket in the toughest scenarios, in toughest situations against some of the quickest and the best bowlers. And one thing that you cannot call Dravid is meek. So let's be honest, right? He can't. His personality can't change. Yeah, you could question him for maybe team composition, tactical errors, which we will be contributing in. Sure enough, and the approach the team might have, but I think meekness will be on the players, whether they are brave or meek, because they eventually have to work out. Rahul Dravid had his career, and he showed no signs of being meek. Let's be honest, as a player, as a batter, or even as a captain. Were India overconfident, cocky? We've already said, like, Gaba ka tuta ghaman, Hyderabad mein nikli hekdi. That is the name we have given. And maybe Vizag mein wapsi. Will it happen? That will be a next show before the Vizag test. Maybe they'll do Vizag mein wapsi.
I mean, India have history in this regard.
Of course.
Definitely they will.
They will. Okay. Mr. Shekhar says, I always like your discussion, but today can you tell why are some of us apologetic to Rohit Sharma and Rahul regime? What's your breaking point if not Asia Cup and World T20 22, Bangladesh and Australia ODIs, WTC World Cup, South Africa, England, 50th. See again, Mr. Shekhar, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about all those scenarios. We know that Rahul Dravid is just being given an extension or is only there till the next T20 World Cup. And I think similar for Rohit Sharma. I think both of them, their future as captain and coach will be dependent on that. I think you will take a call. In white ball, as far as Test cricket is concerned, they still have an enviable record in Test cricket. They still haven't lost a series at home. I think if they were to lose a series at home, and we are still at the start of this series, then maybe we'd be in a better position to discuss whether they should then continue after that or not. And then it will be a valid discussion, but not quite now. How do you put a question mark on losing a test match, which you have anyway in a lot of these series that have happened, but end of the day you've ended up winning the series. So I think this will be a proper question to look at and answer at the end. And similar yardsticks you kept with the previous regime of Virat and Ravi Shastri as well, and I think after you did not get too much success in ICC trophies, you moved ahead from them. Not so much in Test cricket, but then Virat himself decided to step down from Test matches. But I think the same yardstick should be there for Rohit as well as Rahul Dravid, and we'll know at the end of the T20 World Cup or maybe end of this series. But again, hold your horses. As I said, Hyderabad mein hikri nikli, but wapsi in Vizag is very much on the card. So we'll wait and watch. Manchester Rising
says
from the
KL
US.
Ayer Gill holds hands. They can't play Root and Hartley. I thank God they were in their nappies when Warren and Murli were bowling those jaffas to Sachin and co.
Agreed with him, but also at different times. See, they have all been spoilt by playing a lot of white ball cricket, but you can't blame them. See, you can only adapt to the surroundings. 80% of the time you are playing white ball. Your career is dependent on that. Your financial...
Your bank accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Remuneration is dependent on that. So, you will try and excel in the format. Also, forget that. Even viewership. We keep talking about it. Majority of folks that watch cricket are only watching that. So, why wouldn't you want to excel in the format which is more popular? So, they are prisoners of their times. That's why they're trying to excel. And of course, when you try and hone your skill in one thing, it will affect the skill in the others. Which is why, as much as we love the previous generation of the Dravids and Lakshmans and Sachins, they were very good. They even adapted to ODI, but they did not have certain amount of white ball skills as some of these batters display. Absolutely insane. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar was ahead of his time when he was batting at 80-90 strike rate. Yeah. Today you can't, but that allowed him then also to get that balance for Test cricket. Now these guys have pushed the envelope. They've gone further to one side and become so good that it's so much tougher to come to the other side. So it's a give and take sort of a situation. So I don't blame, but it's also the times that they're playing in.
You look at especially Gill, because Gill's name is mentioned over there. I remember this point being made by one of the veterans. His dismissals in the WTC final the last year were all down to, hard hands. Again, he was found guilty of the same thing in the second innings this time around as well. Second ball, you're facing hard hands, getting caught. And by the way, not the most, let's say, not the most times where you'll see a silly point be there. It was a little more straighter, let's say.
Unconventional.
Tactical. So again, because perhaps they knew that Gill has this habit of playing with hard hands, which is why the ball went where it did. So, yeah.
Tactics do matter.
Because of course, you're playing a lot of what happened before the WTC final. We all know 2 months of the most celebrated thing on
2
planet
months
Earth.
of IPL and 2 days of the final. Lest we forget.
3.
3.
Okay. Vishal Panchal from the US says, we need players like Pujara, Dravid for number 3 and not Gill. I mean, you know what? Interestingly, Gill was looked upon as that player.
Exactly.
But maybe, as I said, I don't think they'll take an immediate call, but maybe time is running out for him and he'll have to step up. Otherwise, you go somewhere else.
I mean, to be fair, I think he's a very lucky chappy that, KL of all people got injured. Otherwise, I think him and Iyer, it was a case of who goes out. Heads I win, tails you go.
Yeah.
Simple as. Yeah. But now with KL, the problem is, at least for this test solved itself.
Yeah.
So one test, they need a big score.
No, this test they would have gotten because Virat wasn't coming back. They would have gotten a chance. Next test match, it gets sorted because the injuries, they take time.
Yeah.
Both the quadricep injury as well as an hamstring injury sometimes takes time. The good thing there is that you have a 9-day gap.
Between the second and the third.
Yeah, so maybe gives them enough time. Again, we'll have to wait and watch. Sharan Vinakota.
Why is every time that the Indian team loses, the captain doesn't come to the PSC? It's always the coach who will become a scapegoat. And if they win, the captain will come out laughing and say, we'll play on any pitch.
I think, an interesting point I know a lot of people are pointing. I think this is a lot to do with Rahul Dravid. He has in the past done this, that he tries to shield his player, which is a sign of a good coach, where he comes when they have lost. And when the team has won, he allows, the captain to go. I remember that when he was captain, and I covered a lot of cricket traveling, when he was captain, he would come on the day India lost. I mean, I'll never forget that press conference. I think one of the worst days of Indian cricket when India got knocked out of the 2007 final first round, 50 over World Cup. That game happened in Port of Spain. You lost after already having lost to Bangladesh, a do or die game versus Sri Lanka. When you lost it, Rahul Dravid came to the press conference almost in tears. I mean, you could see he was choking while talking, but he came. He did not send anybody else or the coach or whatever. So this I've seen with him in the past. Again, I'm not blaming anyone or saying it's very different, to each his own. It's quite different to the previous regime where Ravi Shastri mostly came after the
Exactly.
and India had won.
I was about to say that at least here you have Rahul Dravid who's coming out, and Rohit Sharma is also quite. It does attend press conferences, but previously we have seen after embarrassing losses, someone batting coach, fielding coach also I remember coming and talking about this game. So that is something changed from the Shastri and Virat era.
Manchester Rising wants to know, was VK the greatest red ball captain India ever had? That's a very good question.
He's right up there.
Yeah.
I agree. I think he's right up there. Record says, I mean, if I'm going recent captains, I don't think Rohit's reached that level yet. Also because of the amount of test matches that Virat captained. He did bring about a change. Before that, you had MS Dhoni, who I think will go down in history. MS as the best white ball captain that you ever had, but in test matches was found wanting. Sometimes you would allow the game to drift, and that was quite evident. You lost 2 series, 4-0. So that is something you won't forget. So MS doesn't come into the picture. I mean, before that, I'm looking. Dravid was captain. By the way, Dravid, the captain, also has an outstanding record. He won a series in England, and those times wasn't very common. He won the first series in West Indies after 37 years. He was captain then.
Also that was still a decent West Indies side.
Yes.
And if I'm not wrong, got you that win in South Africa as well. He was the captain then?
No, test match, yes, but not the series.
Not the series. Series, of course. Yeah, but again,
the Joburg test.
The Joburg test,
yes. But then Virat also took a team there. Your 2 test series win in Australia. One was captained by Virat, 2018, not the next one where Ajinkya Rahane was the captain, but Virat's got that to his credit. He's tied a series in South Africa, Virat the captain. Saurav Ganguly also may come into it.
No, Ganguly has to, because again, that first overseas win after years which came against Pakistan, he comes there and thereabouts. Again, a lot of the Virat Kohli aggression started with that. He comes, unfortunately.
And more than the numbers, I think it's about the cultural change that he has got into Test cricket. The role of fast bowlers has suddenly increased by the Indian bowlers. You remember spinners doing the most job for the Indian Test team. Now suddenly that cultural change in general also, and this thought process, I remember him saying for the first time that we were in the first time he Test captain that game in Australia where he said Adelaide that we are here to win the game, not to draw it, and they ended up losing that game by a very small margin. So that
Kohli, I remember he at one point used to drop a full-time batter to accommodate 5 pacers.
Bowlers,
He'd
yes.
play 6 pure batters and be like, no, your 6 batters must do the job. 5 bowlers is a must.
Who is it that made it a habit that the Indian team would pick all 20 wickets in a test match? It came from the Virat Kohli, Ravi Shastri era. Let's be honest about that.
Sanideh Mahavar also points out the Multan match, Pakistan as well. I mean, we're looking at
The declaration.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Rahul Dravid. He was captain.
Yes.
I won the test match also. That's also a big achievement. So Rahul Dravid, the test captain, also underrated, by the way, in performance. Okay, let's take a few more comments. We'll take silly points comment, which is because it's a silly comment. We will still take it. Not always going to take good comments because he says, according to sources, Sarfaraz told Rohit that along with batting, keeping, he can also attend press conferences. So we'll take. We will take.
Okay.
Let people know how silly point is. I think what I like about him is that he's given himself the correct name.
Silly point.
Because he does make those silly points.
Nothing beats the one comment I got from this user on Twitter.
Nietzsche, please.
Who said that, if after the first test, if KS Bharat is struggling, then Rahul will certainly keep. And if Jadeja is struggling, you'll find KL bowling spin. Poor guy got injured, he can't even do it.
Okay, Freaking Awesome says, besides KL Rahul, Kohli, how many of our middle order batters have played more than 25 tests? Clearly, we are rushing in youngsters in tests. Too many replacements are happening in a short time. But again, that's the churn you have to go through. After you moved away from Cheteshwar and Ajinkya Rahane, it had to happen. I think every team has to live by that. So that says, looking at 2 exits from first playing 11, Square Turner would be the worst decision.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're throwing on a debutant and a middle order lacking in confidence.
But I think India will get another spinner in.
They could.
For Siraj, get another spinner.
You could.
So you get Kuldeep, let's say, and somebody to replace Jadeja as well.
Washington.
It could be Washington for the batting. So because you'll get Kuldeep, and you'll have you could then do with a Washington because of the batting.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a much improved batter now than he was in 2018-19. Far much improved batter. Back then he still had. Oh,
in Australia he looked so good.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's improved even since then. So I think he's
batting though he's much better batter.
Yeah, his bowling is exactly in test matches we'll have to see.
Yeah.
ODIs and white ball you can do because he can bowl those quicker
new
ones.
Balls, he can bowl with the new ball
also. But let's see. But I guess for his batting you can afford to do it, especially if you consider playing another spinner. But if you're not playing and you're going with Siraj and Bumrah both, then maybe it'll be even tough for Washington to make it. Then you may have to go with a spinner.
And with Washington, you'll have batting till number 10 then. From 9 to 10.
Yeah, but it'll be tough then because if you're playing Siraj, then I don't think he comes in.
Then even I think that it would be Saurav. Then
otherwise, see, because he'll replace Jadeja, so batting still remains till 9. Akshar. Or Ashwin, whoever bats at number 10. Okay, Divyansh Devgan wants to know, what is your favorite cricket biography? His is Vivas Lakshman's 281 and beyond. I've read that too, very nice. Very nice. I love Saurav Ganguly's too. I've read Sachin Tendulkar's
I didn't like that one that much.
Yeah,
Sachin's was I could complete it. I sort of lost.
No, but
I completed it. Great a player.
Ben Stokes is also.
That's okay.
I remember Sunny Days was very good.
Sunny Days is very nice.
Warnies is so candid, it's almost.
Warnies I love.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, another one, not an autobiography per se, but Indian Summers by John Wright.
Gives
you a great account. Great account.
Because it's so witty, that book.
Yeah.
It made me laugh a lot and it has that dry humor. Brilliant. I agree.
Yeah, I remember, I think in that he talks about the fact that, when he's giving stories about a lot of the players, he talks about Yuvraj Singh.
Yeah.
And he's saying his dad Yograj played 1 test for India had one victim. I'll give you a hint who that victim was. It was a New Zealand opening bat, somewhat average, who got to 5,000 runs. So his one wicket was John Wright.
Yeah. No, and he, his attention to these billboards in India.
I remember.
like that.
Some of the photos he's taken in the book, next level brilliant.
Yeah, very, very nice. I like the John Wright book. You must read it. And because it's mostly about his time as coach of the Indian team. It's a great book. I also liked Saurabh's, did I mention, was very nice. Let me think of a few more. One of my favorites was Sanjay Manjrekar's. Simply because most books are about achievements and their, what they've done. Sanjay Manjrekar's book is all about him being critical of himself.
Yeah.
About all his flaws.
And that's the time I think he admitted that finally, he gave too much attention and detail to technique, let's say. That's where the admission
That's
came.
just a one thing. So many things. It's very candid. Why I liked it is because it's honest. What happens with mostly Indian biographies are a lot of things don't come out.
Yeah.
Because you are so worried about what the others will think or what, and the true stories don't come. In his case, as he sometimes is as a commentator, he doesn't mince his words. Or as a media writer.
He's not a bits and pieces commentator.
Yeah, not at all.
Proper commentator, not bits and pieces. So his book also, yes. You should pick that up. Yeah, one of my favorites. Okay, final comments we can take. Shreyas Pudipeddi says West Indies 2024 or India 2021? Of course, India 2021.
Heart says India 2021, but come on, this West Indies team.
I like
team
it. No, but India 2021, who series? From where you were Adelaide, from that is the whole series is like a Hollywood thriller. Written it like it's scripted. Like how happens, the protagonist will be down, worst time. People will leave him, abandon him, left alone. It's just as if someone could.
The perfect underdog story, let's say.
They're left alone.
Perfectly
There.
Yeah, all of that. It's just the most brilliant series ever. Okay, Naval Singh, the reason why we lost this test match is thinking that spinners will roll over England just like first innings, ignoring condition changes and England's approach to winning at all costs. Love for you.
And I think one line from Stokes which really sums it up. He said, you know what? You know what?
Totally like remove the thing that sometimes MS Dhoni talks about. Trust the process and don't trust the result. Just keep doing it. I think they're also practicing that. Just keep doing. Like if you're batting like this, you want a reverse sweep. You practice, keep doing it. Doesn't matter if this innings are out. Next time it will work. Doesn't work next time. Next time, our approach of bowling in a certain way, adjusting the bowler. Doesn't matter. Like it happens.
It's as if in their dressing room there's no iota of pessimism at all. It's just a room full of they breathe optimism.
He bowled him and he got his wicket. Ollie Pope in the first innings looked like a walking wicket.
Yeah.
1 run, 11 balls was absolutely tentative.
Even the second
innings, he started
start so gingerly, like he was up to 7.
And then when he finally said, he said, no, I'll play my shots.
Full broom.
Okay, on that note, thank you so much for joining us. We've been on for more than an hour. Isn't it all? So, lots to discuss even in the morning. 2 or 3 days and we'll come back with your comments even later. But that's all that we have in this edition. As always, send you guys all the love. Show us your love. Press the like, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd be surprised if you haven't. And see you tomorrow. But